Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Very tough name to say, I know. I have to say this as a Republican, looking at this Democrat crowd. He actually is impressive and is very dangerous because he's very bright and he has a way of saying things that don't sound so awful, even though, in my opinion, he's still very much of a radical. He was asked, they were all asked, what is the biggest threat to the United States? Of course, you had a couple of candidates say Donald Trump. Naturally, and that was not what the question really was supposed to elicit. But Pete Buttigieg says it's China, and he said the reason I think it's China.
Amen.
He said it's because, and by the way, Squirrel is an expert on cybersecurity, so he would know. And get this. Buttigieg says China because they are using technology for the perfection of dictatorship. And that really resonated with me because it's something that's always concerned me. And if you are someone who is learned and read and so forth, you realize, yeah, this is the case.
The social credit system we talked about in prior episodes.
Yes, and
the Uyghurs.
Squirrel, come on this. You are an expert on cybersecurity. If anybody would know.
Well, the Chinese, we've been kind of turning a blind eye basically because we never really had any offensive capability to go after them from what I've known in the open source information. But basically, China have been artificially, technologically leaping generational gaps in their technology infrastructure to get to where they are. They stole from Cisco. What happened with that? Huawei became an actual company. Now you see Huawei getting to all these countries doing 5G stuff. It's like, well, what's in the firmware? What's in that technology? Is it going to somebody go flip a switch, turn off the lights later in your cities? Because everything's interconnected now. Your phones, your Internet of Things devices, that's your iPads, your iPods, your laptops, even your refrigerators, and hell, even your home security system can be hacked. It's just... It's pervasive.
It's great background. The thing is here is someone in Buttigieg who's saying it the way it is, and I thought, well, that's pretty interesting, right? And then Andrew Yang says, well, it's Russia. It's right, and some of the other candidates said Russia too, but
it's both.
I got to tell you something, and this is kind of funny, is when Andrew Yang said that, I'm like, well, why wouldn't he say China? Because he is Chinese after all, so maybe it's Russian in this case. I'm just kidding, okay? It's just a joke, right? But, and otherwise, I think Andrew Yang is interesting because he's self-made and so forth. Any thoughts on this, Shane?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think Pete Buttigieg, you're right. I mean, I think that if I was a Republican and I was looking at, who I wouldn't want to, face on the national stage, I think Pete would be very close to the top of the list, right? The issue, and I was looking at some of the new polling that has come out post-debate, and a huge issue for him, and I couldn't, frankly, was shocked at this. He is polling at 0 among African-American Democrats.
What?
And 1% among Latinos.
Whoa.
So that right there is, if I'm a Democrat, I say, well, my goodness, I mean, we can't have him at the top of the ticket because how do you fix a 0 and a 1, frankly?
Exactly.
I mean, those are some rough numbers. But here's a guy who raised $25 million in the second quarter. Here's a guy who raised more money in the second quarter than Bernie Sanders did, right?
Exactly.
So his campaign is resonating somewhere, and I think a large part of it is because he does come off as a really smart guy who takes a careful look at the issues and really kind of evaluates things in a way that is more an elder statesman than his age suggests.
Yes.
So I think he's one to watch. But my goodness, if he cannot attract minority voters
especially
in the party, that's big trouble.
That is.
But
go ahead.
Shane, to your point, you just hit it on the head. I was going to go for this. Someone already floated the idea of a Harris-Buttigieg ticket.
If you didn't know anything about Pete Buttigieg, which I knew a little bit, you were probably impressed with him. I think he just came off very likable. He was the youngest one on the stage during that debate, and I think he does appeal to the millennial generation. This big voting block that's probably going to increase the percentage that votes this election cycle.
Absolutely,
I think they're more engaged than they ever have been.
And you're hearing it from your millennial friends, right?
Oh, absolutely. I talked to people that night at the debate, and they were like, "Wow, Team Pete, like all the way." Like they were
incredible.
Like, yeah, they were.
6 months before the debate, a lot of my friends said, "This Buttigieg guy, he's interesting. I like him. I'm gonna check him out a little bit more." And they didn't look about anybody else.
You mean Buttigieg?
Yeah, Buttigieg. I said it's so wrong. I'm gonna work on that.
That's a squirrel moment. I'm just saying.
Can I tell you how I figured out how to say his name?
Go for it.
So Buddha, Judge.
Buddha Judge.
Take Buddha and Judge.
Exactly.
Buddha Judge. Now there are some people who've got, they're hung up on this thing about how it's boot, edge. That is so difficult.
It's too difficult.
Right?
Yes.
If I say Buddha Judge, it sounds the same.
Yes.
Enough.
It gets the job done.
There you go.
Buddha Judge.
So we got it.
Hey,
See, look, 10 seconds, I fixed it.
Thank you so much, Shane.
It's a name that can get you in a lot of trouble as a Republican, too. I'm just saying. Hey everybody, this is Mark Fisher with Mark and the Millennials. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel.